This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We'll be back in a minute. Singing River Euphrates. The Pixies have canceled a tour in Israel, a singing performance after calls for a boycott. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we turn to the Gulf of Mexico, where Coast Guard Admiral Thad Allen's warning it'll be at least the fall before tens of thousands of barrels of oil gushing into the water each day from BP's ruptured well can be cleaned up. On Monday, BP said the cost of its response to the oil spill catastrophe has reached $1.25 billion. But traveling through the Gulf of Mexico last week, we spoke to many who hold BP responsible for a damaged ecosystem, threatened livelihoods, and an end to a way of life. We visited one community in Grand Bayou, a village accessible only by boat, that feels they're on the brink of extinction. The indigenous Atakapa-Ishak people in this coastal Louisiana community have relied on the land and water around them to survive for generations. They live mostly off the oysters, the shrimp, and the fish, and the waterways and the marshes. Now the traditions and the very survival of this community are at risk. We went to Grand Bayou on the same day as a visiting delegation from Alaska who survived the Exxon-Valdez spill. And we spoke to Indigenous leaders from both disaster-affected communities. We're coming into the Grand Bayou. I'm here with Rosina Philippe, who's one of the leaders of this community. What I think it's fair to say is an endangered community. Rosina, tell us about this river. Tell us about the land, about your home.
Okay, well, first of all, this is Grand Bayou. It's bayou, and it's salt water, and it's different from the river. And we've been here for centuries. We are a Native American community. We are the Atakapa-Ishak, and we live a subsistent life. It's 2010, and we still live the same way that we did centuries ago. The life of our community is more than just ourselves. You know, we are part of this ecosystem. Everything in it, you know, we're a part of, and it's a part of us. People ask us, you know, how long have we been here? We've been here forever. We still have our sacred places. You know, the landscape has changed. You know, it used to be forested. The land used to be high. Now we have no trees, and that's because of saltwater intrusion with canals that were cut for the oil exploration. This is what nature has managed to come up with when all the trees were gone. You know, the land subsided, the other vegetation died off. So nature finds a way to bring something in. So this is like Spartina, it's saltgrass. And, you know, it used to have small amounts of it, but over a period of time, it took over because it didn't have anything else to compete with. So now we have this kind of prairie marsh.
We're right behind an oil tanker. Can you explain what it's doing here?
They pass daytime, nighttime, any day of the week, you know, whenever.
So this is a tug pushing what?
A barge.
And the barge is for what?
The barge carries product.
For the oil industry?
Absolutely, yes. We've had a lot of challenges, you know. come to us, natural conditions, of course, the storms that come into the coast. But I think the most difficult challenges that we're facing are the human-induced challenges. And those are the ones that are hard to recover from. We're facing a challenge right now with an oil disaster and chemicals, and that's new. And we really don't know what to do at this point. You know, I think a lot of what's happening from the BP side, they're doing damage control and they're doing PR work and sound bites, and they're getting away with it. I think that, 42 days out, they should no longer be calling the shots, and they continue to play with people's lives. You know, it's life and death, you know, and they need to stop playing politics. They need to let the government be the government and let corporate America be corporate America. But right now, the corporations are calling the shots. You know, when I vote for a government, and people to represent me in that structure. I don't feel that that's happening right now.
Who's stronger, the corporation or the government?
Oh, the corporation by far. You know, that's without a doubt. I think that, you know, the government is just a paper tiger. You know, it's lots of show and bravado, but when all is said and done at the end of the day, you know, money talks.
How do they tell you whether your area is contaminated or not?
Well, they're supposed to be monitoring.
Have you seen them testing it here?
No, I haven't. You know, I hope they're monitoring, you know, because, my God, I hate to think that something can get by them or they're lax in their duties and it'll cost people their lives. I mean, people have already died because of this.
If you couldn't shrimp or fish, what would happen to your community?
That's difficult because this is all we know. So I don't know what we would do if we couldn't do this, but I know we'd find a way to stay here. So we're facing something that we have never faced before. And it has the potential to imperil us all for the next 20, 30 years. We're talking to some of the people from Alaska and, you know, looking at some of the terrible knowledge that they have, from what they went through, hoping to, learn something that's going to serve us.
Rosina Philippe is with the Atakapa-Ishak people. She visited with the delegation of Alaskan community leaders while in the Grand Bayou, including Patience Anderson, Faulkner, Stanley Tom, and Faith Gemmell.
I'm in Pit River and Wintu, and I'm from Bushreich, Alaska. It's Arctic Village, Alaska, 110 miles above the Arctic Circle in the Brooks Range in the northeast corner of Alaska. We are here to show support and solidarity with the communities here in Louisiana that are dealing with this devastating spill, which has happened to Alaskans also. And prior to us coming, a few years ago, I met with one of the community leaders here as we were addressing global warming issues. And as we talked, we realized there are so many similarities between our communities. We are both fossil fuel states, where the fossil fuel industry has encroached into our indigenous territories and threatened our livelihood, our subsistence livelihoods. And we're dealing with severe coastal erosion issues in Alaska and Louisiana. And we're dealing with severe impacts of global warming and climate change. Now we share this disaster which has impacted people in Alaska with the Exxon-Valdez oil spill 22 years ago, and now the Gulf spill, which is impacting these communities now. It's been very heartbreaking being here to hear the communities, and we've seen the tears. And they're saying, how are we going to be able to feed our families? What about our economy? And it's the same question that the people in Prince William Sound faced 22 years ago. The thing that struck me the most is when we were out on the waters, we saw the shrimpers with their boats. Instead of bringing shrimp home to their families, they were laying boom and picking up oiled boom and bringing that back. And